friends, Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library, and I've got Alder with me here today, and we are here to talk to you about a book that I am just super hyped about. Now, I know you guys know that fantasy and science fiction are among my favorite genres to read. Like, I just absolutely love them. I can't get enough of them. I'm constantly reading them. So, I'm going to talk about a fantasy book today, but the thing that's really special about this particular fantasy book is, as of right now, I am pretty confident that this is going to be one of my favorite books that I read this year. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, and it has such a warm place in my heart now. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop talking about it, and I'm really hoping that even if you are a person who is not naturally drawn to the fantasy genre, there is something in this book for you to love and enjoy as well. So what am I talking about? What book? It's called Swordheart by T. Kingfisher. Swordheart. So let's first just take a moment to look at how beautiful this cover is, and also the pretty page edges, which is just on the standard edition. This book just comes with pretty page edges. Gotta love it. So T. Kingfisher is an author that has written quite a few books, all of which that I've read I absolutely love. Nettle and Bone was one of my favorite books that I read a few years ago, and she has been writing for a while, and so I knew I was going to enjoy this book, as I enjoy all her books, but I was not expecting to fall in love with this one as hard and as quickly as I did. So this book is just a really standard fantasy book in that it is about a character who doesn't believe they're anything special, basically have to go on this quest, learn things about themselves on the way, and stuff like that when I talk about a standard fantasy book. So what makes this book so special? And what makes this book something that you might want to read, even if you are not a person who enjoys the fantasy genre? Well, let's talk about it. So first of all, the main character of this book is a housemaid named Halla. Now, Halla is a widowed woman in her 30s whose uncle, her beloved uncle, has just passed away. She's been taking care of him for the past few years, living in his manor house, kind of, I don't want to say being his servant, but being his housekeeper, taking care of this big manor, taking care of him. He has passed away and left everything to her. So the problem with that is that the rest of her family are terrible, horrible people, and they are plotting everything they can to wrestle this inheritance away from her. Which, even in the beginning of the book, they basically have her locked in her room, and her aunt basically and her cousin have her locked in her room until she agrees to marry her cousin, who will then, be eligible for inheriting all the stuff that she just got. So she obviously doesn't want to do this, mostly because he has like sweaty hands, and how gross is that? While she's locked in the room, she is trying to think of ways that she can get out of the situation. And she pulls the sword down from the wall because her uncle collected these relics, ancient relics and antiques and stuff. She pulls the sword down, but what she doesn't expect to happen is the sword comes to life, because basically there is this immortal warrior whose soul is trapped in the sword. His name is Sarkis, and he lets her know that now he is bound to the bearer of this blade to protect her and to see her through whatever she needs to do. So needless to say, they get off on a rough start because they are two very, very different people. Their bantering and dialogue is some of the funniest stuff I have ever read. And that brings me to the part of this book that I honestly have to say is my favorite part, which is the humor. Now, T. Kingfisher, if you've read any of her other works, you'll know that there is definitely an underlying bit of humor in her stories, particularly dark humor. She's really, really good at dark humor, but this book is just absolutely hilarious. Right from the first couple of chapters, I was laughing my head off. I just could not believe how funny this book was. From the characters, to their descriptions, to the way they talk to each other and about other characters, to just the descriptions of stuff. It was downright hilarious. I loved it. This is a book that does not take itself too seriously, which is sometimes a fault of fantasy books, I feel like. They sometimes can feel very grandiose and posturing, and, it's like, okay, that's great, but also let's bring it down to earth a little bit. And that's what this book does, which is why I think that if you are a person who doesn't necessarily love fantasy books that much, you will love this one. because the characters are down to earth. I really love the fact that Hala is in her 30s. She's widowed. She's been married before. And I just really love that, because so many times in fantasy stories the protagonist is super young and you know, naive and stuff like that. And Hala definitely has her faults, but she is just, you know, a person that has lived her life and has experienced things before, and she brings all that stuff into the story with her, and it's just absolutely amazing. Now, this is not a spoiler because it says it right on the cover. This Sarkis, the warrior in the sword, and Hala do end up falling in love. So there is a little bit of romance there, though. I would really not call this book a romantasy, though, because the romance in it is definitely a big part of the story, but it's so well done and so not over the top. First of all, it's really not a spicy book. If there are any scenes in it, bedroom scenes, it's like closed door bedroom scenes, so you're not getting a lot of details. And it's not the main focus of the book. The relationship between the characters is really just built on trust and forgiving each other and forgiving themselves, and that is really more focused on, I think, than the actual romance part of it, although that is a bit. You know, that is a part of the book. So I would say if you prefer fantasy books that have way more fantasy than romance, you will love this. But if you do love a little bit of romance, it is in here, and it's very, very sweet. I think above all else, that's how I would describe this book, as sweet. So you've got these two characters that have escaped this house. They are now on the run, and they are trying to figure out a way for Hala to get back and kick her family out, so that she can, you know, get what belongs to her and live the rest of her life. And there's just so many different characters and encounters that they have along the way that are just incredible, from brigands and robbers to this notorious like religious cult that keeps bothering them. And it's just really amazing. The cast of characters in this book, there's a lot of them, and they're all just wonderful. So I think this is a book that is a perfect book for fantasy fans, and I also think it's a perfect book if you're not a fantasy fan and you're just looking for something different to read and you want to give it a shot. I love everything about this book, from the characters, from the description, from the writing, from the humor. I love it all, and I think it's absolutely wonderful, and I cannot recommend it enough. Swordheart by T. Kingfisher. Well, that's what we've got for you guys today. I hope that this book sounds really awesome and that it might be something you want to give it a shot. If so, please feel free to come check it out from Farmington Community Library. And also, thank you so very much for watching, friends, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.